If you're interested in attending Catholic worship, come consider the 10 o'clock a.m. Mass at St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. We're located just 4 blocks up from Soldiers Field Road at 43 Holton Street. You can check out our website at stanthonyalston.org. That's saintanthonyalston.org. And come to the 10 o'clock Mass and experience our chanted Liturgy of the Eucharist every Sunday. Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day that your name be glorified. Let us seek the holiness that you call us to in our service to you. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Well, we're continuing in our following along in Peter. We're now looking at 1 Peter, because there's 2 letters of Peter, obviously 1 and 2. So we're in the first letter, and our reading is 1 Peter 10 through 16. Now, I taught you something a while ago, and I've mentioned it in my homilies, and it's something to keep in mind. I don't speak Greek. I don't understand Greek, and one of the reasons why I can say that, well, besides the obvious, is there's a different alphabet in Greek. So since I don't do the Greek alphabet, I don't know it, I can't guess it. That's an important distinction. A story I like to tell, I might have told you before, is I got lost in Japan, and you can't guess Japanese. It's a whole different language written-wise, and you just can't guess it. So fortunately, I was with other sailors, and I wasn't completely alone, but I got lost in Japan. There's kind of a funny story there where I was on the train, and when you're constantly hearing a different language, you don't expect to hear your own unless you're ready for it. So this guy walks up to me, and I'm hearing people speak this Japanese, and I'm in Japan, don't speak a word, and the man says to me something, and I just look at him, like shake my head. I have no idea. And he said, "You speak English, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." I finally recognized it. And he said, "I said, are you going to Yokohama?" Which is where I was going. And that was not when I got lost. It was coming back when I was with the 2 other guys. And he told me how to get to Yokohama. Well, Greek is the same way. I do understand Latin. I can work with Latin, but I don't understand Greek. So I always teach to go back to the Vulgate if you know Latin. And if you go back to the Vulgate, and you can look that up, you can find the exact verse and find it in Latin. And if you know Latin, or at least can guess enough to know Latin, then it's going to lead you to a deeper understanding of what is being said. So our last line in today's reading calls for us to be people who live a holy life, and that means to be focused on doing the ways of the Lord. But really, if you think about it, can you define holy? Now, what does it mean? So, you can say, well, of course, it's kind of like that old ad for Hood Milk for Newform. Do you know what milk tastes like? Yeah, of course I did. Well, describe it. It's not exactly how they put it. It tastes like, and then they had you taste the Newform, and, well, what does it taste like? It tastes like milk. Okay, but you see what I'm saying? There is that word. Well, okay, what does holy mean? Well, it means, to live. And you may realize once you start trying to define the word, you actually don't know specifically what it means. So I look up the word sanctus, and I translate it. And sanctus is obviously the Latin that I got from the Vulgate. And then I translate it, and obviously the word comes up holy, but it gives me other translations for sanctus. And now, of course, I'm doing this on Google Translate, which is fine. Nothing wrong with doing that, because now it's giving me the definition of holy. And what does holy mean? Dedicated or consecrated to God or religious purpose, sacred. So now we go back to when St. Peter is calling us to live a holy life. as he quotes the Lord, be holy as I am holy, to live a holy life. What does that mean? And it doesn't mean, well, that must mean I have to live a prayerful life. That must mean that I shouldn't say bad words. That must mean I should go to church every Sunday. Well, you can choose that to be part of the definition, but that's not the definition. And if we go back to this definition from Google Translate of the word sanctus, it is dedicated or consecrated to God or religious purpose, sacred. So what that means, if we think about it that way, and I should look to see if there is if it has a source besides Google Translate, it doesn't. And if I look at that word, that changes our understanding. So what does it mean to be holy? To live as one dedicated or consecrated to God or religious purpose, sacred. In other words, someone who is doing the work of the Lord. And you're doing the work of the Lord because you are dedicated or consecrated to God or religious purpose, sacred. So what am I saying there? I want you to think about this within context. What I'm saying there is it doesn't mean necessarily just to be a prayerful or pious person. It doesn't mean just someone who may act in a way that shows that he believes in God. It means to live in a way that you realize the meaning of your life is how you serve God, and therefore you express that meaning in serving God. That's a totally, radically different position. Do you understand that? Because you can say, oh, that person is holy because that person says the rosary walking around the block. Well, that may be a religious act, that may be a prayerful act, but if you really want to understand what it means to be holy, it means a lot more than just that, but to be dedicated in service to the Lord in doing His will. That's what it means to be holy. Well, that may mean that you live a different life than you may have expected to be. Do you understand? Because your focus is basically to be someone who's doing the work of God where you are. Now, I want you to understand that within a different context. What is it that people are saying about how we're called to live our life? We're called to live our life. This is very common in Catholic circles. We're called to live our life so that we merit getting to heaven. So we would live a holy life so we could get to heaven. That's really not what Peter is saying. Peter is saying to live a life that is rooted in your dedication to the Lord, because you are living your life in a way to serve God, to be a servant of the Lord. And this is important. So it would be kind of like, I guess a good line was, oh no, I can't remember his name. I think it was Jim Fixx, who was a famous marathoner. Jim Fixx never skied. And he said that. He says, I could never ski because if I broke my leg, my whole goal was to be a marathon runner. So if I broke my leg, that would defeat my goal. So I never skied. So you see that. So he had a focus on his life, and in the focus on his life, he saw another way. He saw certain things he could do and certain things he couldn't do. And that's one of the things that you'll find in that reading when you look it up in your daily missal. So you see what I'm saying here? So it's more than just being a prayerful person. It is, in a sense, what St. Paul talks about elsewhere, being ambassadors for God. Well, that may mean you live a life differently than what you expected a holy person to live. Many people would consider Dorothy Day a holy person, by many contemporaries of her, but there are others that would say, are you kidding me? She doesn't sit around in her house all day and do nothing but pray. And she would have to explain, well, that's not what it means to be a holy person. It means to be someone dedicated to doing God's work in such a way that you are representing God in what you're doing. So your priorities will be different. Your way of living will be different. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you will live a pious life if your pious life is separating you from living a holy life, which may include piety, but it's also going to include action. As a matter of fact, it will include piety, but it will also include action. You should have both. Even I think it was Saint Teresa of Avila, who was a mystic, but she was also a Carmelite nun. That means she lived in a cloister. And she even said that your whole life cannot be just prayer. It must be prayer in action. So your action must be rooted in how you serve the Lord. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. If your action is rooted in how you serve the Lord, understanding that if your action is rooted in how you serve the Lord, then that means that your action may be counter to what other people thought that your action should be. And Dorothy Day defined that totally. But it may define you. How you treat others may not be how the pious person does who doesn't believe in action. But you're going to say, no, I need to serve the Lord. So I have to be a person of prayer, and I have to treat someone in a special way, but in a way that may not be the norm for the way the society is. Do you see that? We're going to talk more tomorrow. Have yourself a blessed day. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Remember, when you're looking for a place to attend Mass, and if you don't already attend Mass at your local parish, come to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. We're located at 43 Holton Street in Allston, just a few blocks up from Soldiers Field Road. And you can check us out, come to our 10 o'clock a.m. Mass, and come to experience our Catholic worship at St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts.